Starting this week and around the world, millions will be bringing home and powering on brand new Xbox Series and PS5 consoles. Over the past several months, we have seen the inside and outside of the new consoles, and with reviews from tech experts published on every corner of the internet, there is little mystery to the next generation consoles. But while we come down to the final days of the release and the latest games are shown running on the new hardware, we have new insight that surprised and shocked many fans, and Xbox hardware leads have spoken out about the advantage on the Xbox platform in this exclusive interview. This is Colteastwood. Thank you for checking out this video. Today we are going to look at the Xbox Series S and the Xbox Series X and how they compared the PS5 with an interview that I had with Xbox hardware lead Jason Ronald. I spoke to Jason for over half an hour and captured the interview from home, and to my absolute horror realized that my video worked, but my mic did not record, but I did get all of Jason's audio, so I will rephrase the questions here. I don't normally do on-camera work for my channel, so if you're okay with this quick fix, let me know by liking and subscribing to the channel, and let's talk about that surprising Xbox advantage going forward. The Xbox Series S and X are the newest consoles coming this holiday, and for many just a day away. Xbox had two approaches long ago to bring flexibility, affordability, and power, and most of all, more ways to play. I asked Jason Ronald, the program manager for hardware at Xbox, to explain what the Xbox Project Scarlett plan was when it began, and he said,
Yeah, so Project Scarlett was really us sitting down to really think about what did we think the future of gaming looked like. You know, at the time we were still finishing up the Xbox One X, so this was back in 2016, and we're always thinking about kind of what that next evolution is or what that next innovation is going to be. So Project Scarlett was really the umbrella term of what we thought about the future of gaming. And out of that came things like the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S. And obviously for console gamers, we want to make sure that we deliver a best-in-class console. At the early parts of Project Scarlett, you know, when we were really thinking about the console space, we knew we wanted to establish the most powerful console we've ever built. So we set really audacious performance targets. And, you know, as we're going through that process, we realized the way you design and build a console is very different today than even when it was when we built the Xbox One X or the Xbox One generation. So we had to think differently about how we design the product and how we design the console. And through that process, we actually realized that we had an opportunity to release a second console at the exact same time, make them symmetrical in the areas that were most important to the gameplay experience, but really it's about delivering the same great gaming experience, just at a reduced rendering resolution. So that was a really pivotal decision very early in the program, and it really shaped how we designed and built these consoles.
one of the biggest hurdles for gaming over the past decade on console has been 30 FPS and the developer's tendency to hold a game at 30 FPS and use the remaining power left over for visuals. Now, with a CPU constraint essentially removed in the new Xbox consoles, what does that mean for games?
So one thing that's really important that's for us is with many of the publishers and the leading developers all across the industry, we've had relationships with them for 15, 20 years. And we're in constant discussion with them to really understand like where their technology roadmap's going, how they're thinking about gaming with their own franchises or new franchises they're building. We take a lot of feedback from game developers when we design these systems. You know, one of our goals is to really make sure that the technology is not limiting the creative vision of the best creators all across the world. And when you look at the last generation, two areas that was really constraining game design was CPU performance and I/O. And so when you talk about 60 frames a second and 30 frames a second, the number one thing that was limiting some games from really achieving 60 frames a second or even beyond 60 frames a second was the CPU performance of the last generation consoles. So we knew very early on we needed to invest very heavily and really step our game up on the CPU side to really allow those 60 frames a second or even all the way up to 120 frames a second. And then, you know, the other thing that's important to us is that we design a balanced system, because you can have a very large GPU and maybe a less performant CPU, or you could have a really strong CPU and GPU, but then the overall experience is actually limited by how much data we can get off of the hard drive. So for us, when we design a system, we really think about the end-to-end architecture and how do we eliminate bottlenecks at every stage of the system, because that's what really enables developers to deliver those transformative game experiences where they don't have to make trade-offs due to, a limitation here, or it'd be great if I just had a little bit more performance there. We really factor that in to make sure that we're delivering a true balanced system that really allows developers to deliver on their visions.
Looking at the PS5 and Xbox Series consoles, there is a clear divide in the hardware design and performance targets meant to serve an affordable set of consoles. PlayStation originally projected to get the PS5 to market in 2019, a year ahead of Xbox. And this meant that the custom-designed hardware from AMD would be based on RDNA 1 architecture, a huge leap from the PS4 Pro of 2016. As Xbox worked on development for Xbox Project Scarlett, they waited for AMD for full RDNA 2, a generation above, to finalize what would become the Xbox Series S and the Xbox Series X. Sony decided to push the PS5 concept further, and this is why the CPU and GPU are less powerful compared to the Xbox consoles, but the frequency clocks or speed are faster per cycle than the Xbox. Put simply, the PS5 engines are weaker but revving higher than the Xbox Series S. The affordable white console has more processing power at a lower frequency clock. I asked Jason Ronald why the team decided to go with fixed clock speeds instead of variable clocks like the PS5. Jason said,
That actually came directly from feedback from developers. As a developer, it's really important to have those consistent, sustained performance, because it just makes it that much easier to optimize and really tune your game for the performance of the hardware. If you have variable performance, it's harder because it's harder to predict. You could be in a very intense firefight, as an example, and then all of a sudden, the CPU gets overloaded, and then all of a sudden you're going to have hitches or frame drops or things like that. So across the entire architecture, we just really focus on that consistent, sustained performance, so that as a developer, I know I'm always going to get the same GPU performance. I know I'm always going to get the same CPU performance. And this also even applies to the design of the Xbox Velocity architecture. We really focus on making sure developers can always guarantee the same performance, whether the game's running off the internal SSD or even the external Seagate expansion card. It was critically important for us because, when you're really optimizing and tuning your game to get that peak performance, if all of a sudden you have a frame drop or all of a sudden, things slow down while you're loading, those are going to impact your gaming experience, and it's really going to take you away. And we want the players to just be immersed in these worlds that these creators are building.
Looking at the most powerful console in the Xbox Series X, it is clear that plenty of power, as Jason described, allows developers to realize their vision in big brand new games to look and play the way they should on very capable next level hardware with no compromises. Few doubt the potential of the Xbox Series X, but with new AAA big open world games also releasing on the Xbox Series S console, many are unsure if the affordable economy console can keep up with the ever-evolving tech bursting into brand new games. Jason Ronald is working closely with developers in-house and across multi-platform studios, building big, new envelope-pushing games around the world to run on high-end PC, the PS5, and Xbox. What are developers saying about the Xbox Series S?
Yeah, the design of the Series S, once again, was really influenced by developers. When we think about current game engines or the way that developers build games, today developers often have a lot of flexibility on the GPU side. They already do things like dynamic resolution scaling, or maybe, they have different resolutions, 1080p, 1440p, 4K. A lot of times they also have a lot of capabilities of enabling and disabling different graphics effects. But the systems that are really hard for a developer to scale, or that can impact the game design, the design of the games themselves, are things like CPU performance and I/O performance. And that's why when we design these consoles, the CPUs are extremely close, and the I/O subsystem is identical between the two systems, because we wanted developers to be able to really count on that next-gen performance on both consoles. But then on the GPU side, it's really about scaling up and down on the resolution and the visual quality. Even next-gen capabilities like ray tracing or variable rate shading or sampler feedback all of those capabilities exist on both Series X and Series S, because once again, as a developer, I want to make sure that I have a common set of capabilities, and then it's really about just performance tuning for the unique characteristics. So overall, we're really happy, and we're really happy to see the results that developers are already delivering. You know, you look at a game like Gears 5. Gears 5 is running at 120 frames a second on the Xbox Series S in multiplayer. And that, like, those are the things that we think really define this next generation. There's a whole class of gamers out there that maybe don't have a 4K TV, or they choose, you know, like frame rate's more important to them than resolution. So we wanted to make sure that both consoles were really able to deliver that next gen performance and just really deliver them at a differentiated price point.
But reports of new games coming to PS5 and Xbox Series X will push the boundaries of what games can do on PC well over double the price of the new consoles. Before launch week, Ubisoft had yet to confirm or show the Xbox Series S capable of hardware-accelerated ray tracing in big AAA games like Watch Dogs Legion. I asked Jason directly, will the Xbox Series S be capable of ray tracing?
Yeah. Both of them have the same ray tracing capabilities. Obviously, the GPU is scaled on the Series S relative to the Series X, but you can still absolutely deliver great ray trace experiences on the Series S and the Series X.
There is a clear advantage with the Xbox Series S and X that most did not see coming. The hardware in the consoles paired with the latest software features is meant to run almost every single game better. Starting this week and into the long generation, the biggest games like Assassin's Creed Valhalla and Cyberpunk 2077 will look and run better on the Xbox and PC over any other platform. Starting in early 2021 after a short holiday 2020, with the launch of the new consoles, Xbox Game Studios has nearly a dozen first-party and timed exclusives to showcase on the new hardware, and Jason Ronald and his team at Xbox are working tirelessly to give developers the tools, power, and the platform to see the biggest games come to life on the Xbox platform, whether you choose to play on a TV connected to a console, on your powerful PC, or remotely on a mobile device. The experience is the same. Your games are with you, and Xbox has never had such a big place to play. This is Colteastwood. Thank you so much for watching. This opportunity to interview Jason Ronald was an incredible privilege. Xbox reached out to me last week after my Xbox Series X review, which was one of my longest videos ever and took me the longest to create. If you haven't watched it, I suggest you check it out. I'll link it here at the end of the video in just a moment. Xbox asked if I wanted to have Jason on my channel, and I don't have a podcast or a platform for live content, so I pre-recorded it, and thankfully on Discord, his audio was captured by my PC, but my mic was not. I was looking forward to showing you all the interaction and discussion we had, and today I haven't even shown you well over half of the interview. We talked a lot about backward compatibility and some of the secrets behind that process, but I'll have to create another video about that. If you enjoyed this video and still got the info regardless of my technical difficulties, show your support and like and subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell to be notified of weekly content. I've got more to share about the Xbox Series S and the S, which I'm getting this week, as well as the PS5. I couldn't get the digital PS5, but I'm assuming a lot of people couldn't get one of those either. Thanks for all of your support. Patrons and channel members saw this video early from the community tab. You can join below or by checking out the links in the description. I have merch there that is designed by me as well. Shirts start at $12. I think that's a good deal. Let me know in the comment section what game you are playing first on your new console. Don't fight with others, and as always, please be nice.